Coming up.
And I always tell kids, you know, I go to a lot of schools and talk to kids, and I always preface my speech by playing that iconic scene of Mike Barnes just, you know, absolutely terrifying Daniel LaRusso.
It's your ass, man. There's nothing you got that I can't counter. Your karate's a joke.
I said, would you believe that scary guy used to get bullied? And kids are like, what? And I said, look, I'm going to tell you a couple things to do. If you do these things, you've got about a 98% chance of having a successful life. It might not.
That and more coming up, so stay tuned. Success. Is it really a secret? I don't think so. Join me as I interview guests from different cultures and backgrounds who have overcome incredible challenges to create the life they live today. 1,000 likes, celebrity status, lots of money, or big cars, these are things that come and go and do not define true success. So what is it? And most importantly, how do we create it? If you're a child, teen, or adult trying to understand how to achieve this word, then you are not alone and you won't want to miss a single episode of The Secret to Success Isn't So Secret. This is Christy Maggio, and the key is right here. It's not a great secret, so don't just listen, learn, and take action.
Down to business. I want to start with your book, okay? And so I know usually people start with, you know, Karate Kid or Cobra Kai, or they'll have to wait for that, right? So I want to know, you wrote The Way of the Cobra. It's something that was important for you to write, and the struggles and journeys in your life, and you wanted to share that with the world, and you're going to be live doing a book signing at the Grove.
Yes,
I'm
excited about that. Wait, first, before I do that, I'm seeing all the people that are in. I see my friend Sheila's in there.
Oh my God.
And Maria Theo, you know, so many people. We got friends from Italy. So you guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So Way of the Cobra is my third book. It's far and away my most personal book. And it's a motivational self-help book, and it's set up with the premise that I'm the sensei, you were a student in my dojo, the dojo of life, Cobra Life. Mm-hmm. Cobra is an acronym formed from the words character, optimization, balance, respect, and abundance. And these are the strategies and the philosophy that I've used in my life to, you know, achieve some of my success. And, you know, I always preface it by saying, before you think I'm levitating on top of some mountain, you know, contemplating my navel, I have made every one of these mistakes in the book at least, you know, half a dozen times. And a couple of years ago, I found myself in a place that I think a lot of people can relate to. I had some, you know, some pretty good success in my life. I had some big failures, some of which were rather well publicized. And I had just turned 50, and I was like, okay, man, what's next? What's act 2 going to be? And I didn't know for a few minutes. And when I say minutes, I mean metaphorically. You know, and I was in a place where I was like 35 pounds overweight. I had no prospects for acting work. I had started to get apathetic and dispassionate, and I realized I needed to do something very quickly to turn things around. And rather than, you know, wait for my ship to come in, I decided I was going to build the damn ship. I just had to figure out how to do it. And so these are the strategies that I used to turn things around for myself. And in that 1 year, I lost the 35 pounds. I wound up writing my second book. I co-authored it with Jill Lieberman, and it became an Amazon new release bestseller. And we got the show that I created, Studio City, on the air on Amazon Prime. And we eventually were nominated for 19 Emmys, and we won 3 or 4. Four, I think. And you know, I don't say that to impress people, but I say to impress upon people, you know, what is possible when you start doing things differently. So Way of the Cobra has all of my absolute best advice. I use a lot of autobiographical stories to illustrate a lot of the lessons in the book. It's a fun read. It's kind of cheeky. You know, there's times that I think it's kind of deep and profound, and there's other times when it's got, you know, kind of a wink and a smile. So it's a fun, good read, but there's a lot of value in it.
Absolutely. And I have my 10-year-old nephew reading it as
Excellent.
well. And, you know, so it's one of those things like, it is written for adults, but you know, it's still ageist, and it's great advice. And I want to kind of segue from that a little bit, because into you as a child, you were severely bullied.
Yeah, was
as a young person, and I really want to hear about that, because that carried through with you. I've been studying you all week, so that, and heard you talking about this before, and so I heard that you had said in a different interview that carried through with you until adulthood, until you let it go. And I want to know, for the young people out there, what that was like for you.
There's a lot to unpack there. You know, growing up as a kind of chubby, awkward, insecure kid in a hard-scrabbled Western Pennsylvania steel town, I found myself the target of bullying. And there was quite a period of time before I found the martial arts dojo. So it was something that I really had to deal with, and it was terrible. And, you know, it's taken me a long time to get rid of a lot of the scars. And, you know, one of the chapters in the book, I talk about your inner child. And that's one of the chapters I'm really proud of, because I give a very detailed way of making peace with your inner child. Because, you know, your inner child is not who you are. Your inner child is like this toxic, you know, it's like a receptacle for all the toxic shame that you know, went through as a child. And, you know, part of us gets angry as adults because that child wasn't able to deal with those things in the way that we now as adults would deal with it, right? We wouldn't get upset with a child for not being able to deal with stuff like that, but yet we get upset with our own inner child. So we carry a lot of shame and a lot of anger around with it. And so, you know, making peace with your inner child, and ultimately what helped me come to grips with making peace with, you know, when I was bullied, is you have to do two things. You have to forgive your inner child for being an undeveloped little kid who didn't have the facility and the life experience to deal with a lot of that. That's the first thing. And then you have to forgive yourself as an adult for not being there to protect that little kid. Physically impossible, right? You know, and once you can do that, and the way that I ask people to do it, I say, get a tangible representation of yourself as your inner child. You know, everybody's got that photo of their horrendous, awkward period. I know I've got one. Or maybe it's you know, a toy that you had, or something. And, you know, it sounds silly, but literally sit down and look at it and focus in on it and take yourself back to that time and ask for forgiveness and give forgiveness, and then put it away and realize that your inner child can be a great source of strength for you, rather than be, you know, an albatross that you know, wear around your neck that, you know, harbors all this toxic shame, because that's not who you are. It's a little tiny, tiny piece of who you were, but it's got a very loud voice. And if you don't learn how to modulate that voice as adults, it can have a tremendous effect on you.
And how did you, like, when you were young, so that is for older people now who suffered that, to how to help them get beyond it. But for youth today that are going through the same thing that you went through, what do you think you might have done differently, or were your parents involved? What was that like in that moment?
What would I have done differently? I don't know. I wish I had gotten involved in martial arts earlier, not just because it teaches you how to defend yourself, but because of the principles that it teaches you, the self-confidence that it teaches you. You know, a lot of it is difficult because, you know, you don't have a fully formed brain. You know what I mean? You don't have the wherewithal to deal with a lot of the psychological trauma and abuse and peer pressure and all this other stuff that kids have to deal with. I think that now parents and teachers are a lot more hip to it. They're a lot more aware. You know, I think a lot of times, you know, people used to say things like, you know, boys will be boys. That's how they socialize things. No, that's not true, because what it does is it breeds, you know, borderline sociopathic men. And I always tell kids, you know, I go to a lot of schools and talk to kids, and I always preface my speech by playing that iconic scene of Mike Barnes, just, you know, absolutely terrifying Daniel LaRusso. And I said, would you believe that scary guy used to get bullied? And kids are like, what? And I say, yeah, you know, I used to get bullied. And I think that, you know, parents and teachers being more receptive and aware to it, and now having a better understanding of how long-term damaging it is really helpful. I think kids understanding that, you know, telling somebody if you're being the subject of bullying does not make you a rat or a snitch. Okay, nobody should, you know, have to go to school and be in fear of you know, physical harm, or you know, almost equally as bad and sometimes worse than physical bullying is cyberbullying, because now with you know, the touch of one keystroke, kids are getting bullied 24/7 to, you know, instead of 2 or 3 people, it's hundreds of people, and it's on the internet and it's forever. So, but you know, I tell kids, I say, you know, it's really funny. Bullying largely doesn't exist as an adult, because if you behave that way in a place of work, you're either fired or you're ostracized. Like it's something that's really sort of age specific. You know, most healthy human beings grow out of it one way or the other. You know, either they have some real bad consequences, and, you know, to the far extreme, they wind up incarcerated, or, you know, they just, you know, they get therapy, or they just learn through proper socialization that it's not acceptable. You know, I advise as many parents as I can to get their kids into martial arts. You know, I'm a firm believer that, you know, defending yourself should be a last resort, but it should absolutely be something that is, you know, in your wheelhouse, because, you know, there are times that sometimes, you know, people can't be rationalized with, and you don't always have the opportunity to walk away. And, you know, I find that you have a much lower chance of getting into a physical altercation if you project confidence, and if you have the knowledge of how to defend yourself, than looking like a victim.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with that 100%, because, you know, a lot of times bullies are usually suffering from, in and of themselves, are suffering from something traumatic happening to them, right? And so They're taking it out on somebody that they know will be the victim, right? Yeah. And so I think that it's on both sides, that, you know, the bully needs help, and then the victim needs help as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I agree with you. Tell us about Peru.
Oh,
You're
Peru.
Doing a great retreat in Peru.
Yeah.
Tell us why, and tell us what that's all about.
This is going to be so exciting. I was asked to lead a retreat based on the teachings in my book, Way of the Cobra, in Peru. We're going to go to Machu Picchu, which is one of the 7 wonders of the world. It's from April 30th through May 7th. There's going to be about 2.5, 3 hours of really fun but intense interpersonal work, motivation, goal setting, all sorts of great stuff to help you unleash your inner badass. And it's also going to be interspersed with amazing excursions to Machu Picchu, to Cusco, which is the South American archaeological capital. We're going to meet the king and queen of the Incas. It's going to be a really life-changing event, and it's limited to a very, very small number of people. And if you're interested, you can check it out at excursionmeperu.com. And it's also excursionmeperu.com, and it's also in the bio on my Instagram. And you know what? If you even think it sounds remotely interesting to you, go check it out. It's an amazing mystical location to go do this. And if you feel like you're at a place in your life where you really are ready to make some profound changes, really to level up and you know, really learn how to be the absolute best that you can be, this is going to be the experience for you.
Talk about and in the book, and I think that's one of the most important things, especially right now in the situation the world is in, and a lot of time with what's going on with the people in the Ukraine. You say a lot about, you know, the need for increasing compassion and empathy.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so can you explain that a little bit? You know,
sure.
How can people in this situation, you know, have that compassion and empathy, especially for what's going, a lot of things go on every day.
I mean, you know, I'm a political science major, so I could get into a political discussion and tell you that this is a sovereign nation that was invaded by another nation, and for that reason alone, they deserve our empathy and our help. But on a humanistic level, the damage and the death and the displacement of people it's an abomination. You know, enough about the politics. To go back to empathy, you know, people ask me sometimes, you know, can you just tell me a couple things I can do to be successful? And I'll bring this back around. And I said, look, I'm going to tell you a couple things to do. And if you do these things, you've got about a 98% chance of having a successful life. It might not be the successful life that you envision in your head. It might be different, but you will be a successful human being. The first one, super simple. You learned it in kindergarten. The golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Simple. The second one, act with integrity. Your word is your bond. If you tell someone you're going to do it, do it. Be dependable. Demonstrate your character. What is character? Character is how we behave when no one else is watching. Look, reputation is what people think about us. Character is who we really are and who we are in our essence. And character is everything. It absolutely determines your destiny. I can't say enough about it. The third one is to behave with empathy. You know, you see an older woman in line in front of you at the pharmacy, and you're in a hurry, and she's like rifling through her purse to pull out a check, which already, you know, you start, oh God, this is going to take forever. You don't know if that woman is deciding whether she can pay for her husband's cancer medication or eat that night. So you never know what private wars somebody else is fighting. You know, and I say, you know, just take a second to be kind. And I talk a lot about the difference between being nice and being kind. I don't care about nice. Nice is, you know, it's what society tells us we should do to behave, to be, you know, civil with others, and that's important. But you can be kind without being nice sometimes. I'll give you an example. You know, you find out that your kid is at a party, there's drugs at the party, and you walk into the party, you know, and you say, come on, let's go. And he doesn't want to go. And then you grab him by his shirt and you escort him out to the car. That may not necessarily be nice, but you're behaving with kindness and tough love to take care of your child. So difference between kindness and niceness. The last thing that I tell people is grind. You know what? Get out of bed. Be out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning. You know, full of passion, ready to take on the day. You know, start the day in gratitude. If you're living in gratitude, then you're in the present. You can't worry about something that's going to happen that might never manifest. Okay, you know, and if you feel anxious, it's because you're worried about the future. And if you're feeling depressed, unless you're clinically depressed, it's because you're concentrating and holding on to something in the past. If you focus on gratitude, what you're grateful for the day, you're living in the present, and man, that is a great way to start the day and to, you know, just really take care of business and take care of your goals and lead your best life. So if you can do those four things, you're pretty assured of having a successful life. And like I said, bringing it all the way around, compassion and empathy are critical. You know, service is a huge part. You know, as we get older, we start thinking about our legacy. You know, how do we want the world to remember us? And, you know, ultimately, the way that we're able to love and help others and the quality of our relationships as we get older and as we even come to the end, it really is the most important stuff. You know, it's not, you know, if success was only based on material acquisition and money, a spectacular proportion of the population would be deemed unsuccessful. And I tell this little story in the book. I talk about you have to define your success, not my success, yours. You and I probably have a lot of things that we share as common denominators that we both need in our lives to be successful, right? We want to be loved. We want to have fulfillment with our jobs, friends, but there's things in your life that you need that I don't need, and vice versa, right? Okay, so defining your personal success is really important. So I say in the book, and especially I love to tell kids this, let me tell you what success is not. Success is not the bloated Instagram feed of obnoxious celebrities parading their conspicuous consumption of toys and boats and cars across their Instagram feed. And you know what? Half the time that's bullshit anyway. Okay, trust me, I work in Hollywood. Okay, you know, my uncle has this great saying. He says, "Things aren't always what they seem. Skim milk masquerades as cream," and it's true.
Love that.
Right? Okay, it's not the airbrushed covers of fitness magazines or women's fashion magazines that have impossible standards to live up to. That's not success. And it's not the constant barrage of commercials that we watch telling us what we have to be successful. Okay? You know, inside, you have an internal barometer that tells you what you need for your success. So the story I tell is this. Imagine a guy who's an immigrant. He doesn't speak English very well. He's worked as a janitor for 30 years. It's probably not the first guy that we would associate with being wildly successful. But what if I told you that that same man saved all of his money? He put his only daughter through medical school. She grew up to be a brilliant research scientist and went on to save thousands of lives. I would say that he is phenomenally successful. So everybody's definition and version of success, you can't worry about what people think success should be. You got to worry about what your inside tells you it is. And it may look very different than what other people's success is.
I tell a story, not similar to that, but like the whole, you know, coming over on the boat and that's one of the talks that I give. And then them arriving in Ellis Island, opening, you know, and looking out onto New York City. And I talk about that as a success story because I think that the idea too is to understand is that there are different points of success, right?
Yeah.
It depending on, you know, you can have success in achieving all of the things that you wanted to do today, and you can have success in the long run as well. Yeah. And I think that those different points of success are really, really important, and not for people to get caught up in the feed of what they see or think success should be.
You're absolutely right. Look, there's always going to be someone skinnier, richer, blah, 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 blah. You know, and I tell this story in the book about basically this story is about how I was in acting class with Brad Pitt. And I said, you know, if I compared my career to Brad Pitt's, I would be in a perpetual state of feeling like I'm somehow a failure because my career is not the same as Brad Pitt's. But his career is not the same as mine. I have my career. I have my success. And I tell this funny story about how we both auditioned for this film called Days of Thunder with Tom Cruise. And I was a very young actor. I was green. I was terrible. I was walking outside of, I think it was Paramount, and there's Brad sitting on the curb. And I said, "How'd you do?" And he kind of cocked that sideways smile that he's very famous for. I don't remember exactly what he said, but he didn't do very well either. And ultimately, Carrie Elway's got the part. So my point is that, you know, even guys like Brad Pitt don't succeed all the time. And I also do have to mention in the book that there was one time we both auditioned for something and I got it. But anyway, but my point is, you can't compare yourself. The only person that you are in competition with is yourself. But you need to be in competition with yourself every day. Every day, you got to be trying to be better than you were yesterday. And it doesn't mean you're going to be better in everything, okay?
Right.
You know, but be better in something than you were yesterday, even if it's just being kinder than you were or being more aware. or reaching out and trying to touch someone else's life. You know, as long as you're constantly on that path to trying to be the best you can be, which in my book I call a cobra. That's a cobra. Okay. Then man, you're on the path. And I got to plug the book at this point and just say, if you want to find out more about my book, please go to wayofthecobra.com.
Yes.
And you know what? I wish somebody gave me this book at some point in my life. I mean, of course, I'm doing podcasts and book signings because I want to sell books. But I honestly, with every fiber of my body, believe in what I wrote in this book and know that it has the potential to help people achieve paradigm shifts in their life. And if you're in the Los Angeles area on March 12th, I'm going to have this incredible event. It's absolutely free. It's open to the public. It's at the Barnes & Noble on Saturday, March 12th at 2 o'clock at the Grove. Everyone is welcome. I'm going to do a reading from the book. There's going to be a moderated Q&A by James Lott Jr. There's going to be champagne. There's going to be food. You're going to have an opportunity to ask questions. You can purchase the book. You don't have to purchase the book. Come and say hi. It's kind of my way of thanking everybody who's been so supportive. And it is going to be a terrific event. And lots of surprise guests.
Some way for me to pin that on here, but I don't know how. So
yeah, I'll send you something.
But that's okay. After this is over, I'll put it in the notes for it. But I think it's amazing. Wayofthecobra.com.
Wayofthecobra.com. And the book is like, we are like minutes away from getting it on Kindle and Amazon and all that. As I do this, my wife Michelle is in there doing the final proof and uploading it to Kindle. So my hope is that over the weekend, or for sure Monday, the book is finally going to be available. The ebook will be available on Kindle, and we're going to put the book on Amazon. I waited a long time to put it on Amazon. I didn't want to put it on right away. I not only thought that Jeff Bezos had enough money, but you know, a lot of times when people buy the book, they contact me because I leave my DMs open in Instagram, and I really love to kind of, you know, correspond a little bit with the people who are getting the book. And I ask them, hey, when you read the book, get back to me. Let me know what worked for you, what you have a question about. And I really feel that having that reciprocity with the people that are acquiring the book makes it a much better experience for them, and it helps me a lot too.
And I have to say, I'll be honest, you are very humble. You are very kind. You always, I mean, almost all, at least to me, you know, you respond. And that's what I think, you know, I love the most about you is the fact of, you know, and you're always talking about your wife and how wonderful she is. And I can relate with her on getting that Kindle format going, because I did that with my book, and then there's a different format with the Nook, and then there's a different format for the paper. So I relate to her on that. Right. But you are very humble and kind, and you're very relatable. And I think that's why you're so popular, and so many people enjoy speaking to you or listening to you. So I want to ask you, okay, so I mean, there's been more Bold and the Beautiful, and so questions here. Deacon has been coming up a lot. Cobra Kai is coming up on the ticker. People are like, are you going to be in the season? Are you going to be in the season? But I want, before they do this, I want you to tell that story, that important story, because there is that moment where you talk about how a lot of times people look at bad situations in life or setbacks in life, and they focus on that. But if they don't focus on the fact that it was a setback and keep on moving forward, they realize that they needed that setback in order to get to that better place. And yes, I think
this is a big topic.
Really good story.
So I'm going to kind of abridge it a little bit, but basically, look, human beings carry a lot of stories with them, okay? Stories are rationalizations that we use to get through situations, and generally speaking, humans are really bad historians. And by that I mean, if you took an event that happened to you in your life and you recounted it as clearly as you could to a friend, and then you went to a movie theater and you watched what really happened in that event, I would say at best you're about 45% accurate, okay? Because we look at things through the prism of our gender, our sexuality, our sociology, our age, our a million different things form the prism of how we see things that happen, okay? So if we agree that we're pretty lousy historians, why not work to attach positive stories to the events that happen that can empower us, rather than attaching stories that are limiting and that serve as a like an anvil you wear around your neck, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give you an example. I got divorced, God, it's like 20 years ago. And at that point in time, it was absolutely crushing. I saw it as a failure. I was angry for how I behaved. I was angry for how I allowed myself to be treated, all sorts of swirling emotions, right? And I thought it was one of the most devastating things that ever happened to me. Well, with the expansion of time, things that initially might seem negative often prove to be very positive, because had that not happened, it wouldn't have freed me up to meet my wife, Michelle, who is my soulmate and the love of my life, okay? So I tell the story, and so many of you have heard it, so I'm not going to tell it again, but I tell the story of how I got the role in the Karate Kid 3, and I almost died filming it. Long story short, I went from dramatic highs to dramatic lows to dramatic highs, right? And in those moments of the highs and lows, it was the worst thing that ever happened. It was the best thing that ever happened. It was the worst thing. So I tell this story about this Chinese farmer who lived about 700 years ago, and he lived on this small, modest farm with his one son and his one horse. And one day, his one horse ran out of the corral, and his neighbor said, "What bad luck, my friend?" And he said, "We shall see." And the very next day, the horse came thundering back at the head of 7 stallions right into the corral. And the neighbor said, "What good luck, my friend? Now you can plow your fields in a 1/7 the time." And he said, "We shall see." And the next day, his son, this farmer's one son, went out to go break one of the wild Mustangs, was thrown to the ground, broke his leg, which was a life-threatening injury at that time. And the neighbor said, "What bad luck, my friend?" And the farmer said, "We shall see." The next day, the local warlord came at the head of 100 men to conscript all the young men to go fight in a war in a faraway province, but the son couldn't go because he had a broken leg. And the neighbor said, "What good luck?" And the farmer said, "We shall see." And on it goes ad infinitum. So the point is that we never really have the 30,000 square foot view or the view over the horizon of how something is ultimately going to affect our lives. And this goes for things that are good too. Sometimes that which starts sweet ends with bitterness. So to that end, what I talk about is to try your best to maintain the middle path. And by that, I mean, I'll give you an example. When I was first starting acting, and if I got a big role, I'd go out, I'd get drunk with my buddies, and I'd party, and I'd celebrate, blah, 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 blah. And I would completely go, off the reservation one way. And if something really bad happened, it was really bad. Well, the reality is that most things in life that are bad are not always as bad as we may think they are. There's always a silver lining. And most things that are good are ephemeral. They stay with us for a while, but like everything, they evolve and dissipate, and then you're looking for the next thing. And so if you could kind of keep an even keel and realize that, that which is good, but don't allow it to pull you off the path. And that which is bad is probably not as bad as you think. It allows you to keep what Mr. Miyagi called balance. And balance is the third pillar of the way of the Cobra. You must have balance in your life to have a happy life. And life is messy. And so achieving balance is a bit of an art form.
Yeah, I love that. Great explanation. Great explanation. I mean, and right now I have people, they're all like, "Are you Toris' dad? Are you Miguel's dad? Are you Toris?"
I can't say. All I can tell you is this. All I can say is that if you love Cobra Kai, keep watching, because I think you're going to love it even more. That's all I'm going to say. I think you're going to.
I do love Cobra Kai. I do love it.
I think it's going to be great.
What is your, there's no way you're not coming back. You can't
say that.
No way, you cannot say it, but I affirm that you are coming back. And that's just my opinion.
We shall see.
We shall see. That's right. And you know, it's cute because one girl said on here, non capisco niente. And
niente?
Like, and so
allora, possiamo parlare italiano?
Sì, possiamo, we can do a Tanglish, right? Possiamo parlare italiano. Tu sei stato in Italia per quanti anni? Un anno? 3 anni?
Quasi un anno.
Quasi
ho
un
abitato
anno.
per quasi un anno a Roma quando ho fatto Ballando con le Stelle, which is Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah. Dancing with the Stars in Italy?
But I mean, I've studied Italian. You know, I've studied it off and on for over a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And when
ma tu hai fatto un film in Italia anche, Sons of Italy.
Sons of Italy, Figli d'Italia. Sì, ho fatto un film e ogni tanto quando vado in Italia, per fortuna riesco a fare interviste in italiano. È un po' difficile per me perché sono un po' arruginato adesso, a little rusty.
No, io capisco. Io parlo spitaliano, io dico, perché spitaliano, perché parlo spagnolo, parlo italiano, parlo inglese, so spitalian, and then I speak.
I think we're confusing everybody though. We got to speak English.
I know, they're like, ah! So anyways, but we'll go back to English, but I think that's really, really cool that you were able to go over, and I watched a little clip of you on Dancing with the Stars in Italy, and you did amazing.
Oh,
and, I love
guy
that.
with 2 left feet. I hung in there.
It's incredible. So you produce. Which one do you prefer? Producing, acting, both?
It's a tough one. I prefer acting. I do. Acting is my first love, but I think as an actor, you're always in a position, unless you're a Brad Pitt or a Tom, where you're waiting for someone to hire you, and it can be very frustrating. And so as a producer, and as a writer, having the ability to actually create a project for myself and hire friends is an amazingly empowering thing. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot about producing that I like, but acting and performing is my first love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, Studio City is incredible. What did you think when you won Emmys? Like that's
so. I was in my hometown of Newcastle, Pennsylvania, the night that the Emmys were happening, and I was teaching a martial arts seminar, and it was at the same time as the Emmys, and so I specifically left my phone in the car because these people had paid to do a seminar with me, and I didn't either want to be really happy or really, disappointed, although, we stay the middle path. And so I didn't bring my phone. Anyway, just as the seminar entered, my father walked in and he looked at me and he just came up and he said, "You won." And I just I got really quiet. And I walked over in a corner by myself, and I just it took me a second to process it. You got to understand, I've been on daytime television since 1992, and I've never won an Emmy. And this was the first time out of the box when I did my show that I created, and we won. And it was just such an amazing feeling. And, look, I mean, there's so many people that are responsible for this happening, not the least of which is my wife and my partner, Timothy Woodward Jr., and lots of people. But, for that moment, I really, I took a little mental victory lap. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, it is a team effort. I mean, these things don't happen by themselves, but no. For sure. I mean, I couldn't even imagine. Like, you just must have been and you need to have that moment of excitement and happiness because you work so hard for it.
It's a tremendous amount of work. We are going to be dropping 6 new episodes next week, which I'm so excited. So if you haven't seen Studio City, please go to Amazon Prime. There's 11 episodes, and they're short form, so they're between 12 and I think 16 minutes. And if you watch them all, it'll prep you to watch these 6 new episodes. And I just think you're really going to love the show.
I love how you have a lot of the actors from General Hospital in there. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, oh my goodness, that's great. You know, you have a lot of General Hospital actors.
It's for those of you who haven't seen it, it's not a soap opera, and it's not even for soap opera fans, although they love it. But it's the story of my character, Sam Stevens, who is an aging soap star. And he's a guy that just is really trying to figure it out. And, you know, he's got some work to do in himself. And it's a lot of fun. You'll recognize a lot of people in it. And, you know, we like to say that we make you laugh sometimes, and we make you cry sometimes, and we make you think sometimes.
I'll be honest, in my family, and I mean, it's a great series, so I highly recommend it. Studio City on Amazon Prime. You guys should definitely go and watch it. I'll be honest, in my family, we still call you by AJ Quartermaine, because I mean that's what I grew up on that and on you like that. So it was really interesting. Like even when we'd be in the group with Doug, like, oh, AJ was on today, you know.
Well, now it's Deacon Sharpe, though. This is
now it's Deacon Sharpe.
Back to my true love, which is Bold and Beautiful.
Yeah, so now it's Deacon Sharpe. And so what do you think in these past 2 years of, for example, of difficult, you know, COVID and everything, what do you think was the greatest lesson that you learned that came out of this trying time, or maybe like an insight you had?
You know, when the pandemic started, I made the conscious decision that I was not just going to survive, I was going to thrive. And I know that a lot of people had a very difficult time in 2021. But for me, it was one of the most remarkable years of my life, because it forced me to really take a hard look at myself, do a lot of work. And I had some amazing things that happened in that year. And I guess the overarching lesson that I learned was to believe in myself and bet on myself, because you know, I've had times when the chips are down, and you know, I knew that I was the only person who was going to be able to save myself, and I've been able to do it, at least thus far. And so I just, you know, I tell people, if things look really dark for you right now, if you feel lost, if you feel depressed, if you feel like you're, you know, kind of like just a leaf floating down a creek, you know, going with inertia, you can turn things around. It's, you know what, it's not complicated, but it's not easy. The things you need to do it are not complicated. The work you have to do is not easy. And you know what? I go back to my book. Honestly, I believe that, you know, what you need to help do that is in the book. You know, you have to do 2 things. You have to accept the fact, first of all, that the universe wants you to win. You know, a lot of people, they get into this victimization. Oh, you know, the universe is against me, blah, blah, blah. That's bullshit. It's crap. Okay. How do I know that? Well, it's in our DNA to survive. Okay. Why does a baby know to hold its breath when it goes underwater? Why, when for 200,000 years, human beings were not the apex predators and we were running around in loincloths trying not to get eaten by saber-toothed tigers, are we still here? And those ferocious felines are a footnote in an anthropology book, because we are hardwired to survive. Surviving is the very predicate, the very basis of success. You can't succeed if you're not here, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is you must take responsibility for your life. Your life is your fault, okay? Where you are is who you are. All the decisions that you have made, the good ones, quote unquote, and the questionable ones, have led you to where you are at this moment. If you don't like where you are, then it's time to get into action. But action is what you have to take. You must take action. You know, you can read all the self-help books in the world that you want and listen to all the tapes and all that crap, and a lot of them will say the same thing. You know, but if you don't take action, nothing's going to change. You know, I say in like the first or second page of my book, I say, I've got good news and I've got bad news. And I say, if you're like me and Don Corleone from The Godfather, you insist on getting the bad news first. So here it is. I don't have a magic bullet. I don't have a magic elixir to turn you into this uber successful beast that I call a Cobra in my book. But here's the good news. Everything you need to do that already exists within you. It's like the Zen riddle. How did the ship get in the bottle? It was already there. Everything's inside of you. You just got to let it out.
I love that. You're absolutely right. And you know, and I love when you had told the story about, you know, the two children growing up in the same house in the same family, and it's whether or not, what do you want the, you know, the story of your life or the film of your life to be? Are you going to be the one that rises up, or are you going to be the victim, right? Yeah. And it's all about how you choose and what you want for your life, really.
I mean, victimhood's a choice. Look, there are absolutely people who have experienced horrendous things in their life that would make them a victim in the moment, but perpetuating victimhood is a choice. Okay. And I talk a lot about that too. You know, people cling to victimhood because it's got some benefits, at least in the beginning. You know, you get to be part of a group, you know, other people that have, you know, suffered the same events. You know, a lot of times, at least in the beginning, people will demonstrate empathy for you. It can make you the center of attention, but very quickly, those, you know, those quote unquote positives give way to a myriad of debilitating negatives that keep you in a suspended state of, you know, stagnation, and ultimately keep you from living your best life. And so, you know, there are people who've undergone horrendous things, and I am in no way minimizing that. But to allow yourself to continue to live victimized by the events of the past is a choice. And again, I'm not saying it's easy, but, you know, finding a way to make peace and finding a way to take even the worst possible experience and use it as something that motivates and drives you is one of the keys. You know, Viktor Frankl wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And this Viktor Frankl was a Holocaust survivor. And he was in one of the most horrendous situations a human being could be in. I would rather probably have been killed than to have to go through some of the stuff that they went through, although I would have gone through it. But the point is, he found his why. And his why was that he had to stay alive to bear witness to what happened. And so if you can find a reason to take even the very worst circumstances and attach, you know, I'm not talking about attaching a rosy, shiny story to it, but attach a meaning to it that will drive you and fire you up. And if it pisses you off and makes you angry, and you know, let that be it. But whatever it is, but to continue to be a victim is a choice.
And I have to agree. And you know, one of the things that I do, and I did in my book, was I took those stories, and there are some difficult stories, some difficult people, some people who had extreme stories, but out of those extreme stories of sexual abuse or physical abuse or whatever it was that they had experienced, they overcome it and created the success that they wanted for their life. Yeah. And use that to help other people. And so instead of being stuck on in the victim sense, and like you said, you know, we can empathize, we can't exactly understand, but we don't need to stay as a victim. We can overcome that and then help others who are experiencing the same type of situation.
You look at like someone like Oprah Winfrey.
Perfect.
My God, I mean, she, you know, a victim of sexual abuse repeatedly, and you know, grew up in poverty, and I mean, just the deck was just so stacked against her, and she looked at the deck and said, "You know what? Screw you. I'm doing me." And is now one of the most successful human beings on the planet.
Yeah. So. Yeah, she, I think, is one of the most inspirational stories out there, along with, you know, Nelson Mandela is another one. And I mean, there's so many
absolutely
stories, you know, that people can go and look at and just use it to fuel them in the right way, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah. Okay. So some of the people here have asked a few questions,
Okay.
and so do you have a little bit more time so
Sure.
we can answer some of their questions?
Yes.
Okay. So let's see. The question is, how do you manage your productivity? How do you find motivation, etc.?
Well, I'm always involved in some kind of new project or another. So I've always got something that is kind of fresh. For me, I love what I do. It really is true. Find what you love to do and you'll never work a day in your life. I got up at 5 o'clock. I got up at 4:50 in the morning. I don't always do that, but I got up today. Couldn't wait to, do a little meditating, get my day set, to produce and do all the things I love to do. You're going to have days when you're less enthusiastic than others. I call a personal day sometimes. There's some days where I literally look at it's funny, Michelle and I have this thing where we call it a technological rebellion. Like, you ever have one of those days where the computer won't work, your phone won't work? It's just like, you're just like, you know what? It's a technological rebellion, and we literally put the devices away for the day. And sometimes I'll just say, you know what? I'm having a really lousy day, and I'm calling it a personal day. And I'll go do something that I want to do as a way of kind of refueling and reinvigorating myself. But for the most part, I love what I do so much. And I feel a real responsibility. I talk about what your why is, and one of my whys is to inspire people. And so for me, I got to get this ebook out there. I got to keep promoting my book. I want to get this into as many people's hands as possible. That keeps me going. I work with my wife, who's my best friend and one of the single most talented people I know. So she keeps me on my toes. And, I love acting. And any day that I get to go to the studio or to a film set and do what I love is just a blessed day. And, I always say, because people are like, oh, why do you work so hard? And I'm like, well, I love what I do. Yeah. And so when you love what you do, it's not hard work, it's heart work, right? Yeah. I love, and so I think that when you love it, it's completely, completely different. So absolutely.
Yeah. Next one is, hi, Sean, you're awesome. Writing helped me in my depression and anxiety. Many thanks to you. That's great.
Thank you. There's nothing that makes me feel better than knowing that someone got value from the book and that has helped their life. I want to say hi to my buddy Adam Bressler, just got on. Hey Adam, how are you, pal? Daryl Vidal, Grandmaster Daryl Vidal, who was in the Karate Kid, but he's also the creator of the crane kick. He is credited with creating the crane kick. He's a phenomenal guy. One of the things I love so much about what I do is that I've increased my the contacts and the people that I deal with, and people that start out, maybe having an interest in the book, and then I communicate with them, become friends. And what a blessing that is. And so, when you get a little of it, you get hungry for more of it. And I think that's one of the things that drives me. I want more.
I have to make a course.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm very close. When I say close, probably about 3 weeks away. I'm going to be launching a subscription-based weekly Zoom course. Nice. Based on Way of the Cobra, where you can work directly with me, and we're going to do it once a week. And it is going to be a phenomenal way for people to take their game to the next level. So all sorts of stuff in the shoot, and I'm trying to get it out there as quickly as I can.
I love that. You know what, though? Because, there's a lot of things here that people are saying, like, they're having difficult times. They're trying to find themselves. Yeah. They're suffering from anxiety. If that's a part of those, the people that are listening, that's happening, get the book, The Way of the Cobra. And then when, follow Sean. And then when that comes out, be a part of that group, that community, so that they can actually, you can then help them and inspire them personally. Yeah.
And I think the other thing too is, know that you're not alone. I mean, listen, everybody, has that time on the edge. Everybody, has moments of doubt and crisis of conscience and things like that. God knows I've had them, and you know, what defines our lives is how you deal with those moments.
Mm-hmm.
And what determines how you deal with them is your character. You know, are you going to fold up and go home? Or, you know, one of my martial arts senseis used to say, get knocked down 7 times, get up 8. Let me tell you what, life knocks everybody down. It will kick your ass. Okay. You know, there's this great monologue that Stallone says in one of the Rockies, I forget which one. And he says 2 things. He said, the world doesn't meet anybody halfway, but he's like, the world will, you know, beat you down. And if you let it, it'll keep you down.
Right.
And you can't, and you just gotta keep going.
Absolutely. A lot of questions here, and so I'm just kind of like scanning through them so that like not answering one of them because there's like 20 of them.
Well, I want to say hi to everybody.
Yeah.
Brazil. You know, we've got such amazing fans.
Go ahead. I love
Brazil. You know what's crazy though? None of you people in Brazil buy my book. All right, so you guys need to get the book.
I know it's translated to Portuguese.
I know. No fala português. So maybe that's the problem, that it's not written in Portuguese.
What about Italian? You definitely have to translate it into Italian.
Yeah, I really want to get it. I really want to get it translated into Italian, and I think that's going to happen at some point.
No, I mean, I've seen here people from Madrid, Brazil,
amazing,
Puerto
all over the world. I'm so humbled by it.
Yeah.
Okay, somebody asked what it was like to work with Darlene Connolly, who played Sally Spectra on Bold and Beautiful. I love Darlene. She passed away. She was, you know, I know this is probably inappropriate to say this word, but she was one of the great broads. She was from a different time. I'd go in her dressing room and she'd have the racing form and she'd be drinking a beer out of the can. She'd say, come on in, kid. And we'd sit there, and I loved her. She was an amazing, amazing human being, and I loved working with her, and I miss her dearly.
That's sweet. Yeah. I mean, there's probably a lot of people that, you know, you work with so many people. Is there one, and I know I don't want to put anybody on the spot here, but that you maybe not thought was a favorite, but really were inspired yourself by?
Ooh, wow. You know, I've been inspired by a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's funny. When you
maybe
what,
or that maybe kind of took you under their wing and was, you know, like a mentor to you when, in a sense.
It's been a mentor to me. Well, you know, I gotta say that you know, Brad Bell, who's the executive producer and head writer of Bold and the Beautiful, has been absolutely wonderful to me. You know, I've had a 22-year working relationship with Brad, and he has put up with me through good and bad, and has been a major part of my life and has had a profound impact on my life. So I would say he's definitely somebody. You know, I try and learn something from everybody. I mean, I learned a lot from working with John Avildsen on Karate Kid 3. I mean, he won the Academy Award for Rocky, you know? So I've learned a lot from almost everybody that I've worked with. God, you know, it's so funny that when you ask me this question, and you would think that I've got 50 different people that I could whip off. You know, I learn from my wife all the time. You know, she's a producer on Studio City, and we sort of do very different things. We have very different skill sets, and I learn from her constantly.
You know, in general, you know, you learn from the people that you work with all the time. I'm sure Mr. Miyagi or Pat Morita was probably huge in that as well.
And you know, it was a real honor.
Starting out then.
Well, I was just starting out. Yeah. I mean, it was an honor to work with him because, you know, I grew up with him as Arnold from Happy Days. You know, I used to run home from school and watch Happy Days, and he was
Arnold. My God, yes, of course.
You know, I would have to say that, you know, as far as mentors, I would say my father's been a mentor to me. My Uncle Jeff has been a mentor. I've had acting teachers that have been mentors, martial arts teachers. You know, Daryl Vidal, who's with us right now, has been a wonderful, you know, mentor and source of wisdom and strength and friendship for me. I've been very fortunate that way to know some wonderful people.
That I was messaging Forbes Riley earlier, and she told me, she's like, tell Sean I said hello.
Oh,
She's
love Forbes.
in your book.
Well,
there
you want
too.
to talk about someone who's a dynamo. I mean, she is I mean,
Spitfire right there.
Like a nuclear reactor, that one. Yeah.
For sure. She's wonderful, wonderful. So I just wanted to give her that little shout out too. The other question here that I want, that was here, and you know, I just saw from UK, from Rome. There's people on here too, so shout out to them.
Grazie.
The other thing is, and a lot of questions that people are asking is, if you're young and you want to be an actor, what is your advice? And that's a big one.
I would never discourage anybody from following their dream.
Mm-hmm.
I would tell them it's a very difficult business, and be very clear as to why you want to do it. If you want to do it because you absolutely love to perform, you've got something inside of you that you want to share, and you feel that this is the conduit to you sharing it with the world, then I would say do everything you can to prepare yourself by taking acting class, by reading books about acting, studying a martial art, wonderful for acting, studying a foreign language, great for acting, traveling, great for acting, therapy, great for acting. I would say do everything you can to prepare yourself, and know that it's very difficult. I think there's like 80,000 members of the Screen Actors Guild, and I think at any given time, only 3% of them work. So you need to know what you're signing up for. You can dedicate a substantial portion of your life to pursuing the arts, and it might not pan out the way you'd like it to. And, you wake up, but you know what? It also can. Okay. So, you know what? If you really want to do it, then I would say do it 100% and do it smart, and try and learn as much as you can about it, and don't let anybody tell you no.
I think for you, it's a really good thing because you went to school first, and you went on, you started with political science, right? You got a major, you got your degree in political science, but meanwhile, you had this desire for acting at the same time. And were you acting and doing your political science degree at the same time?
Yeah, I had already gotten Karate Kid 3 when I was in my final year at UCLA, and it was really tricky. I mean, I managed to finish UCLA by the skin of my teeth, because I was very close to just saying, hey, you know what? The acting thing's working out pretty well. And my dad was like, listen, you know what? You really need to finish this. And it was one of the best decisions that I ever had someone help me make. And look, college isn't for everybody, and I completely understand that. But for me, I'm very happy that I did it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what did you do when you went out there? All right. So you're there, you're at UCLA. Did you get an agent?
I got a manager pretty quickly. I was relentless. I mean, I came out and I was knocking on doors, and I just, I didn't know anybody. I didn't really know anybody. I didn't really know how to go about it. And I just trial by error and just making mistakes, and, getting doors slammed in my face until finally I get my foot in, and then finally I get my shoulder in, and then finally I was able to walk through the door. But all of that experience, ultimately, I wouldn't trade for anything, because, that saying, the steel is tempered in the fire. It was those moments of struggle where it helped prepare me for what was coming. And so, Malcolm Gladwell, who wrote a lot of books, but one he wrote called The Outliers, says that to be successful in anything, you need to have 10,000 hours of experience. And, I thought about that, and I was like, 10,000 hours? How the hell am I going to? And then I started thinking, I was like, well, I've done 1,000 episodes of network television, and I've spent hundreds of hours going to auditions and acting, so I have my 10,000 hours. Right. And so, if you really love something and you put the time in, with few exceptions, you will achieve results. They may not be the exact ones that you envision, but you will make forward momentum.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, what were two of the biggest mistakes that you made when you first went out there?
I got too caught up in the fun and nightlife of being a young single guy in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't as disciplined as I could have been, which would have helped a lot. It wasn't even discipline, it was self-discipline. There's a big difference between discipline and self-discipline. And I've had to learn self-discipline as a now mature, very mature adult. Discipline is when there's an external force that's kind of keeping you in line. And discipline can be highly effective. Personal trainer's discipline. Being in the military's discipline. Being in prison's discipline. But a lot of times when the external force is removed, the 24-year-old Marine in peak physical condition becomes the 60-year-old couch potato. Okay? Self-discipline is when you learn to do it yourself. And I've had to learn the hard way through a lot of battles to become self-disciplined. I think another mistake I made, what other mistake did I make? Those were two pretty good ones. Those were two pretty good ones. I think had I been more attentive to those two things, then things would have initially unfolded differently for me. But you know what? I had to go through what I had to go through to get where I am. And so I don't have a whole lot of regret.
Right. It's not that you regret them. And I think that that's probably natural for a lot of people just going out to LA in a sense, is that, they're swept away by that.
Yeah. And it was swept away. And also you got to remember, I did, a huge studio film, and it doesn't really come with a playbook as to how to kind of live your life when you're undergoing that kind of scrutiny and notoriety for the first time. So I made a lot of mistakes. But, one thing I can say in retrospect is that I always tried to be kind to people, and I always tried to be decent to people. And where I fell short, I apologize. But I never, at least I hope I never, behaved with intentional malice towards anybody. And so because of that, I can forgive myself a lot of the other mistakes. I don't have any huge events where I say, God, I was really a shitty human being to this person, and I'm embarrassed by it. Have I done things I'm embarrassed by? Yes. But not being wantonly cruel or intentionally bad to anybody.
Yeah. No, and I think that, you were you were bad to yourself, not to anybody else, right?
Yeah, I was. I wish I'd been nicer, kinder, smarter, and more self-disciplined. Unfortunately, I am now going to have to jump off.
Okay, well, let's do one more.
We got one more question. Let's do one more.
Well, no, I pretty much summed them. Did a good full summary of all of the questions. Let's just leave off with something inspirational. Good quote. First, let's leave off with number one. Tell us, refresh with your book signing, with your retreat to Peru, and the possible and they then coming up, your what are you gonna do? Your course for the.
Okay. Well, first, please watch The Bold and the Beautiful on CBS.
And Bold and the Beautiful, yes,
please
of
watch
course.
The Bold and the Beautiful.
Deacon Sharpe.
Deacon Sharpe, if you're in the Los Angeles area on March 12th, Saturday, March 12th at 2 p.m. at the Barnes & Noble at the Grove, I'm going to have a huge event. There's going to be food. There's going to be refreshments. There's going to be celebs. There's going to be a reading from the book by me. There's going to be a moderated Q&A. It's a chance for you to ask questions. You can buy a book. You don't have to buy a book. It's completely free and open to the public, and I hope you all come. What else? If you want to get a copy of the book, please go to wayofthecobra.com. The ebook is going to be coming out shortly. 6 new episodes of Studio City coming out within the next probably week, and that's probably enough.
Yeah.
I just want to thank everybody who tuned in and spent this time with me. I sincerely appreciate it. And I want to thank you so much for giving me your time. I love talking to you, and I hope we have the opportunity to do this again.
Learn more about his retreat in Peru.
Yes.
Go to excursion. What is it?
ExcursionMePeru.com. ExcursionMePeru.com. It's a amazing 7-day retreat in Peru. We're going to go to Machu Picchu. I'm going to be teaching daily seminars based on Way of the Cobra. There's going to be amazing excursions from April 30th to May 7th. ExcursionMePeru.com.
Okay, un abbraccio, un bacio. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ci vediamo.
Dai, grazie.